Hello, everyone. This is Jessica Pettit, and who do I have the pleasure of interviewing today?
This is Tracy Stuckrath with Thrive Meetings and Events out of North Carolina. And I am a speaker on safe and inclusive food and beverage. Huh? What?
I was going to say excellent. And what's amazing, I think, is that Tracy's probably, I think, the most accessible expert when talking about diversity and inclusion specific to food, beverage, those that provide and or purchase food and beverages at events in a way that, one, prevents people's death, but two, also teaches people how to ask the questions about how to actually be inclusive of other folks, working from meeting professionals, venues, hotels, chefs, to meeting participants. So I'm super excited that you're here. Dun, dun, dun.
I'm super excited I'm here too.
Woo-hoo. Very cool. Okay, so we always get things kicked off by starting with two open-ended questions. And so I'm really interested, because of the lens and experience that you come from, what these are going to mean to you. There's no wrong answer. First one is the concept of diversity dividend. So this usually comes up for me kind of like, well, what's the point or why I do this? Avoiding people's death is not always the answer, but more like thinking about investment, return, action around DEI work. What does diversity, equity, and inclusion work mean to you through this concept of diversity dividend?
It means that, when you're talking, and what you said about me with food and beverage is that it gives an opportunity for planners and venues and hotels to, actually increase their dividend by providing for individuals who have dietary restrictions of whatever sort. And case in point, there's a story about a young boy who died a couple years ago at a childcare facility, and I think it transitions totally to this, but a senator said no child should die because of negligence. Mm-hmm. And I think that transitions right exactly into meetings. And mm-hmm. No one should die or be excluded for their dietary restriction because of negligence or because of just happenstance or, I forgot or I don't understand. Mm-hmm. And there's an opportunity to increase revenue, to increase your PR. I don't want you to increase your PR. I want you to be ethical about it and think good things about it, and things will come to you. So I think that's where it comes from. I think it's good business practices. It's the law, and it's financially opportunistic.
Yes. And don't be lazy. That's what I always feel like. Just don't be lazy. Okay. Next big open topic, no wrong answer, is asterisk other duties assigned. So specifically thinking about your work history and the work you have done, these are kind of the tasks that either get voluntold for you to do that you're not necessarily rewarded for based on your expertise or your identities or skills. Sometimes those lead to burnout, or certainly not rewarded for emotional labor. And asterisks, other duties assigned, sometimes are things you volunteer for because it helps you get served, it helps your identity show up, build community, etc., which goes straight towards self-care. So how does asterisks, other duties assigned show up in your actual work history?
Volunteering for my industry. I have volunteered for Meeting Professionals International, chairing golf tournaments for a couple of years. I actually chaired the Food Allergy Research and Education Walk for Food Allergy for 5 years. So interacting with families all over Atlanta to create a race walk. So because I'm also an event planner and I have been for 30 years, I use that as my way to give back to people through my experience and my connections. And I'm doing another event in October, helping, actually that's part labeling food, coming up with an opportunity for chefs at a food festival who are not going to give you the ingredients of their food at all until you walk up there, creating some documentation for that.
Mm-hmm. So what is interesting, and that's such a great like segue into who you are and how you got to doing this work. In a recent interview I did with Brian Sullivan, we were talking about how so often the targets or the victims of bias or oppression are often the catalysts for inclusion work. And I know you were diagnosed over a decade ago with your own kind of food allergy related pieces, but you were doing, in my opinion, diversity, equity, and inclusion work before that. But possibly your personal experience really had you dive into this niche. Can you talk a little bit about what you do and why you do it on the microest to the largest level, wherever you want to go?
Yeah, you're right. I got diagnosed with food allergies 16 years ago. And so it made me jump into this whole thing of where I want to help meeting planners and hoteliers and catering companies understand what food they're serving. Mm-hmm. And so I analyze their menus. You know, when you look at a menu on a restaurant or on a hotel banquet menu, it comes in a big paragraph. This is what you're going to get on this buffet. I line by line itemize that, and I note what the allergens are just by reading it, not by knowing what the recipe is, but just kind of reading it and doing a little big Google searching. And then I create a meal card or a buffet label that I think it should read. And then I ask questions to the chef. How is this prepared? How are you going to serve it? What's it going to be served with? So that we can figure out really where the cross-contamination possibly could be. And then talking about, you know, if you look at that long buffet and then compare the dietary needs of your attendees, what does the vegan have to eat besides the condiments? Or what does the gluten-free person have to eat besides the crudité, mm-hmm. which is chopped up vegetables? So that you're being inclusive. I mean, I feel that every menu should be at least 20% vegan options and have at least 30% gluten-free options, so that you are providing options for everyone and they need to be substantial. They can't just be the condiments. Mm-hmm. So I help do that and talk about the kitchen. What's your staff's responsibility, front of the house and the back of the house, to make sure that nothing happens. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not just lost into space.
One of the biggest things, and I so appreciate everything I've learned from you, and is even at a diversity and inclusion conference, so often food and beverage, the space, scent sensitivity within the space are completely forgotten, even though the content is actually talking about exclusionary practices or inclusion best practices. And right. There's a frequent thing, and we were talking about this recently at a conference, a metaphor used for diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is being asked to the dance, when you're at the dance, being asked to dance, and also having music that you know how to dance to being provided, right? And mm-hmm. I think that DEI work so often gets stuck at, well, we have a lot of difference here, right? So, but it sounds like a joke when you say, like, they don't just have to eat the condiments, but I think that that's such a great way of flipping that metaphor into the work that you do, is that, can I eat here? Yes. Great. Can I have a meal that is nourishing and of equal value of other people who are attending this event? Oh, well, that might be complicated. And is it possible that I'm not just going to be fed mushrooms for 4 days? Like, mm-hmm. Is there a variety? Is it interesting? Is the food and beverage complementary to my experience to the whole event? And I think that's where DEI comes from in your work, and why I heart you so much.
I heart you too. You've taught me a ton too, thinking about other things and how it plays out. And you know, I started talking about this on food and beverage, and then I was at a conference, and a friend of mine is in a wheelchair, and the time it took her to get to the space where the food was being held, where the food function was being held, she had to go down 2 elevators in the back of the house. And then when she showed up, all the tables had chairs around them, so she couldn't wheel her wheelchair up to somewhere to sit down and enjoy. She asked the hotel if they could remove some chairs, and they removed them all to make her sit by herself. And so that equitable, is that the right word? Is the same thing. I mean, I'm thinking about the dietary needs specifically. That's where I started out with. But now I'm like, how do you get into the room? How does someone who is short in stature or who's in a wheelchair, or me who is in a sling for the last 6 weeks and had to have my parents cut my food, how do I go to an event and have someone take care of me as well at the same time too? And so it's made me think about things so much differently than when I started out as a meeting planner way back in 1991. My boss didn't teach me that. I mean, retired military people, I mean, they don't think about that part.
Right.
You know, so.
Well, before we get to my 2 favorite questions, I think one of the things that I would say that is important to be thinking about is in most diversity work, when there's a pushback of like, well, we just can't do everything. No, you can't, but you can try not to kill people. And specifically when it comes to food and beverage, like that's a low bar, you know? And it's really been fascinating. And what I've learned from you is the lens of like, well, what am I supposed to do? Feed everyone? Yeah, actually, yeah, because you say lunch is provided, right? And it's such a fascinating thing in that either do not serve food or serve food the people you know who are coming can eat, you know, like, and it's such a fascinating place in my work to kind of boil it down to that piece, but that's where I get the biggest pushback. And then when they realize what they're doing doesn't make any sense, now we have a window into, yeah, we're asking you to actually include all the people who attended the event or all the people who paid because they're now members. Yeah, I'm expecting you to actually serve them. So it's really helped with conversation. So, which is why I wanted you here. But okay, are you ready for my 2 favoriteest questions?
Oh my gosh, yes. Sure.
Okay. I know, it's always funny. You can tell who knows me really well because they're like, oh, what are these going to be? First one is, what have you changed your mind about lately?
What shoes I'm going to wear on a trip.
Good. Excellent. Number 2 is, what do you absolutely know?
What I absolutely know? That talking to strangers, you make new friends. I love talking to strangers, and you find out new things and you experience new things. And so I love it.
That's great. Okay, lightning round. You did a really good job lightning round on those 2, but this is super lightning round. You gave me 3 numbers, 18, 4, and 35. I have icebreaker cards that are easy, intermediate, and deep. So number 18 is intermediate. What do you hope will be your biggest accomplishment in the future?
Oh, wow. That's medium. That understand that labeling for dietary restrictions becomes a standard. And that around the globe, not just in the US, not in the EU, because they vary right now, and not in Canada, but they become an industry standard across the meetings and hospitalities industry, whatever hotel or convention center you go to.
Excellent. And foreshadowing to an amazing certification program I'm kind of trying to convince Tracy to do. Okay, number 4 is easy. Relax. Name the group where you felt the happiest, most integrated, and most accepted.
Are you talking? I'm thinking I went right to a band, but you're talking about Donnie and Marie.
Right.
Yeah, I loved that show when I was little, and it was the first concert I ever saw, and I saw them again last year. And they're corny, but they're awesome. And their show is ending in Vegas.
Good to know. All right, last one, deep, number 35. How would you most like to be remembered?
That I made a difference in someone's life around food allergies. I made them feel, hey, I can eat. I can go to this. And that I made a difference.
And I think you also teach people how to advocate for themselves, what questions to ask, and planners, what questions to ask of chefs, what questions to ask of their suppliers. It's great. All right, Tracy, if people wanted to get in touch with you to learn more about you, or hint, actually recommend the meetings that they're going to use you to at least look through the menus, How would they get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, which is thrivemeetings.com. They can give me a call at my phone number, 404-242-0530, or they can find me on LinkedIn at just search Tracy Stuckrath.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tracy, for all the work that you do and for being here today.
Thank you, Jessica, for having me, and I appreciate it.